everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books. Today I have another book review for you, and that is For Brother Red by Adrian Selby. This is a standalone fantasy novel, and one that I was really interested in checking out because this is one of those books that I like to get every so often where maybe I'm just maybe I'm shopping for books online, or maybe I tend to do this most often when I am browsing in a bookstore and something just catches my eye that I don't know anything about. I've never heard of it, or maybe I have heard of it, but I don't know what anyone thinks of it or anything about it or anything like that, really. And I just pick it up just to have something that I otherwise might not have chosen. This can be based on like the description on the back of the book. It might be the cover. In this case, it was for both. But this was one of those books that I just kind of picked up on a whim just because, first of all, I love the cover of this book. Very minimalist, but I think done in a very good way. But then also reading the back of the book, it sounded kind of interesting to me. And it was a standalone and didn't have a huge amount of ratings on Goodreads, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of read something that kind of was a little under the radar that maybe would be really enjoyable. And also like had a good cover that really kind of grabbed me and stuff. Overall, I did enjoy this book. It's not one that I loved, but I had a pretty good time with it. So definitely glad that I did pick it up. So as far as things that I liked about this book, of course, there's kind of one of the things that initially grabbed me about this book, which is the basic premise and idea of this book that's outlined, on the back of the book here, that's literally all that I read about this book before I bought it, was just looking at the cover and then reading the back of the book. Basically, this is about a character named Druna. I don't know if that's actually how her name's pronounced, but it's spelled in a way that I can't quite tell, but that's what I'm going to call her. A character named Druna, who is part of this merchants guild called the Post. Basically she is transporting some goods for somebody, and while doing that discovers a dead body of a certain kind of people, different culture within her cargo, and there's something funky going on with that, so she decides to look into it. That gets into this whole investigation, this mystery of why this person was there, what's going on with that, who knew about it, was this something that her organization might be involved in, whatever, all these kinds of things, kind of launches this whole investigation. And I thought that was a really interesting premise, kind of hooked me right from the beginning, I think. I don't think the story quite hooked me beyond that, unfortunately, which I'll talk a little bit more later, but I did think the initial hook of this book was very, very good. I also really enjoyed the writing style of this book, which is, to me, a little bit surprising because the perspective of this book is one that I tend to not love all that much when I read it, which is first person and present tense, which I'm fine with. First person generally. Present tense tends to throw me off a little bit, and especially the two combined. Which is kind of funny because back in college when I would write short stories for my creative writing classes, that is exclusively what I wrote in. But for some reason I tend to not really enjoy reading it that much, but I did enjoy the writing style in this book. With that aside, I think the writing, first of all, fit the tone and the world and kind of set the tone nicely. And it was also very readable. For the kind of POV that you get in this book, I felt like it was pretty easy for me to still put that aside and still get into the book despite that. One of those cases where kind of initially it threw me off, but as I read it more and everything, I think the writing style kind of worked for me, which is, I guess, nice. So the perspective wasn't much of a hindrance to me. And I just enjoyed the prose of this book in general. Very easily readable. It was very easy to kind of go through this book at a pretty good pace, actually. It's simplistic, but it's not it's still well done. So I enjoyed that about the book as well, and also fit the atmosphere, fit the tone. I really liked the dialogue in this book as well. There was it's a very dialogue heavy book. I would guess that 80% of this book is dialogue. That could be an exaggeration, but that's what it felt like. It felt like a lot of dialogue, which was a little bit of a hindrance to me in some ways, because There were times where I felt like there wasn't enough like happening necessarily sometimes, but I did still enjoy the dialogue. I think the dialogue was very interesting, very well written, and I generally enjoyed reading it. I also did like the characters, which, again, kind of similar to the general plot of the book, didn't grab me a huge amount, but I enjoyed them while they were on the page, so I guess that was also good. I also really liked the action in this book. Like I said, this is kind of a... or I don't know if I said this, I can't remember. But this is kind of a dark fantasy. I don't know if I would say it's on the level of like grim dark necessarily, but it's approaching that point. It's not quite like the bleak, like super, like, I mean, it's kind of like morally gray a little bit. It's got kind of that very down to earth, like gritty kind of feel to it. So I guess in that way it's grimdark. It's not necessarily like everything is horrible and everyone's like just evil people and all this stuff. But it is kind of that gritty, down to earth kind of thing. Because of that, I think partially the writing of the action is just very visceral, very violent. Like there's a couple points where it got a little bit, I don't want to say like gratuitous necessarily, but like very it got to be a lot at some points. But very well written though, very impactful, very like easy to envision, that kind of thing. So very well written action in this book as well. And there's not a huge amount of it, but there is a decent amount in some places. And I thought it was pretty enjoyable. As far as things that didn't quite work for me so much about this book, I've pretty much talked about them already. The plot outside of the setup, so like after like a quarter of the way through the book, I think like the first quarter of the book was really kind of hooking me. And then after that point, it never quite drew me in the same way as far as the actual plot of the book. I still enjoyed reading it generally, but just that never quite grabbed me, and the characters as well. I enjoyed Druna as a protagonist. Like, I think between the perspective and the prose and everything, you get a good sense of like voice to her, which I enjoyed, which I think made the writing style a bit more enjoyable to read. But outside of her, none of the characters really like grabbed me all that much. So that really is the main issue that I had with this book, I think, is that those two things, like, they were fine, but they just never were like, oh, I can't wait to see like what happens next. Like, I was interested to see where things ended up because the premise I thought was very interesting, but like page to page, I was never like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next, or anything like that, which is unfortunate, but I still enjoyed the book fine. It just, wasn't quite to the level where I was super engaged in it all the way through. It was just, I read it, I had a good time with it, and that pretty much is about it. That's really about all I have to say about this book. Despite the fact that the characters and the plot were not like super exciting to me, I did still enjoy this book. I enjoyed reading it all the way through. It just was never one that like I absolutely loved and adored or anything like that. And there were a lot of parts of it, a lot of scenes, a lot of chapters that I did still enjoy. A lot of good action, a lot of good dialogue. The writing style, like I said, I thought was pretty good. And all that stuff. So definitely a book that I still enjoyed. It's just not a favorite or something like that. So as far as a rating out of 10 that I would give Brother Red, I'd give it like a 7.5 out of 10. It was pretty good. It was pretty enjoyable. I just wouldn't say it was quite a great book, in my opinion, for me. But it was one that I enjoyed and I would recommend checking out if it sounds interesting to you. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got to talk about here. So if you have read Brother Red, let me know what you thought of it in the comments. If you enjoyed it or didn't, or if you haven't read it before but you're interested in doing so, or if you've read any of Adrian Selby's other books. I believe this is his third book that he wrote, and he's released a couple other ones, which are here on the back, called Snakewood and the Winter Road, which actually both of those I can get audiobooks for through my library. So I may check those out at some point. If you've read either of those, let me know in the comments as well what you thought of them, and if you'd recommend them. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.